About quilt making today, and we're going to talk about the artist Faith Ringgold. But first, I want to show you this quilt because it was a symbolic freedom quilt during the Underground Railroad, and Harriet Tubman was probably, well, is the most famous conductor on the Underground Railroad. And then you see the quilt squares around the outside, and there are symbols that represent freedom and different paths or stops on the Underground Railroad. So quilt making is a wonderful tradition of taking scraps and kind of fabrics and kind of collaging them together. And collage can be sewn together, it could be glued together, or layered, even painted on fabric. And that's kind of what Faith Ringgold does. It's connecting to her African American roots and traditions, but also celebrating African American history and also the road to freedom. So I want to show you Harriet Tubman on a quilt here first before I introduce you to Faith Ringgold. So here is Faith Ringgold, and you can see she's painting on top of fabrics that she has sewn together and collage to make a quilt. I do have a few links for extension videos. I'll throw those in the instructions so that you could watch those if you'd like. Faith Ringgold is known for her paintings, her sculptures, her performances, which expressed her experiences as an African American woman. And her work is just so cool because it tells a story, and she uses her artwork to then launch a career as an author and illustrator, not just a professional quilt maker and artist. So she can tell a story through her work beautifully. She was born on October 8th in 1930 back in Harlem, which is a part of New York City. So New York, lots of culture, lots of people, lots of diversity, lots of just exciting things happening in New York City. And October birthdays, I have an October birthday, so I'm close to Faith in that regard, close to her birthday there. So she taught art, actually, and she was an art teacher. That's why I like her too, because I'm an art teacher as well. So she taught art at New York City public schools, and then she had a teaching position at the college level as well in California for a while. Anywho, she's best known for her painted quilts. So she would use fabric and she would use paint and she would put it all together to create these amazing scenes. And she also, like I told you, wrote stories about her quilts and illustrated them. So the quilts came first, and then she says, I'm telling this story through the quilt making process. It's like a history sewn and painted together. I should make a book about it. So she did make books about it, and I actually linked a few of the books that I read from her in the instructions as well. Definitely check them out. Tar Beach in particular, probably her most famous one and most famous quilt. But I love these here because this one's kind of like an African American take on a painting by Georges Seurat, A Picnic. I love this one here because it's got a lot of famous African American women and freedom fighters, including Sojourner Truth here, and then the sunflowers. I love sunflowers. Do you remember what artist also loves sunflowers? She also included a little art history here. Vincent van Gogh is painted in her quilt as well. And you can see that all of her quilts have border frames with a bunch of scraps, a bunch of symbols, a bunch of patterns. It just makes it very exciting. And you can even see some of the stitches in there. And then on this one in particular, she wrote a bunch of words there. She's like telling a story on the quilt. So she could tell the story with words and pictures on a quilt or in a book. Love it. All right, so here's Tar Beach, her most famous story quilt, and that's going to inspire our next project. So this is like a story of her as a young child up on the rooftops of their apartment building in New York City, and her parents and family friends always get together, and they call it Tar Beach because in New York City there's not a lot of beaches because there's so many buildings. So the tar and like asphalt, concrete up on the top of the apartment building was like their beach. They'd have the blankets, they'd have the picnic, they'd look up at the stars. And that was a great memory that she had as a kid. And then she would kind of imagine herself flying over the bridges and buildings of New York City as if she was free and like a superhero flying over the city and just taking in all the sights and sounds. So there is Tar Beach. You can see the stitches where it was sewn together, and then she actually painted all of this on top of fabric. Some of these fabrics she actually went in and painted too. The extension video, if you want to click on that in the instructions, she talks a lot more about that and shows you up close and personal Tar Beach. So here's some more information about Tar Beach, just like the extension video will tell you as well. Here are some more illustrations from the book. It's her and her like little brother flying over the city, all painted by Faith Ringgold. We are going to make a quilt square ourselves. We're going to make a border around the outside edge with a ruler. So we're going to use some math skills. You'll see that in the demonstration video. First of all, we're going to get a separate piece of paper to make some pop-ups. We're going to, in the border frame, we're going to write our name on the bottom. And then on the top, if I could fly, I would go to, you fill in the blank. So, in the story, she flies over, like the George Washington Bridge. She flies over different places. If she could go anywhere, where would she fly? But then I want you to be creative and think, where would you go if you could fly anywhere in the world? And it doesn't have to be real. It could be imaginary. So I wrote, I would go to every continent around the world because I want to visit every continent, every culture, try the food, see the art, meet the people, take everything in. I just love culture and travel. You might want to go to somewhere you've already been or somewhere you want to go, or you could travel back in time or travel to the future or travel to space or an imaginary place in a video game or movie or something like that. I want you to be creative and think. So start thinking right now even where you might want to go. Then in the middle of your quilt square, you're going to use pencil first. Keep it light till you get it right. You'll see my pencil and eraser there. Then after you draw in your place, wherever you go, you're going to outline with Sharpie marker. You'll outline your name down here with some block letters. And then you'll also outline that sentence, if I could fly, I would go to, and then you fill in that blank yourself. On the separate piece of paper, you're going to draw some pop-outs. So one is going to be you flying, just like in the story Faith Ringgold. Then the other pop-outs, you can have as many pop-outs as you want. I have the Eiffel Tower. That's a symbol of Paris, France. Then I have the Sphinx and some pyramids, a symbol of Egypt. So again, I want to go to every continent. I'm kind of representing that in my landscape here. And then you have to leave some space in the sky for you flying, and then leave some space for your pop-ups as well. They're going to go here and here. I have the French flag, the Spanish flag, the Sydney Opera House in Australia, New York, Seattle, even some space represented there too. So you can represent all sorts of different places. All right, you have pencil, you have Sharpie. Then you're going to watercolor, paint, and do a little blending if you'd like. Think about a little atmospheric perspective as well. Things are getting lighter as they approach that horizon line. Darker, more detail in the foreground, as you know. And then in the demonstration video, I'm going to show you too how to do the accordion fold for your pop-outs that you'll cut out very carefully. All right. But again, don't cut them out till that watercolor is dry. If you don't have watercolor, you can use colored pencil, marker, crayon, whatever you have on hand. After the middle image is complete with watercolor or whatever you have at home, you're going to do your pop-outs, the accordion fold. I'm going to show you in the demonstration video a little better, but you have a rectangle and you fold it forward, backward, and you make a little accordion. You're going to decorate the border frame with scraps, and then, like Faith Ringgold, you can go back in with those scraps and you can draw on top or paint on top with different patterns, textures, details. Try to think of the elements and principles of design while you're doing that, just like Faith Ringgold did. And again, if you want some inspiration and ideas, you can watch those extension videos. So here is my finished example. I've gone back in the border frame. I have written where I would fly. I have my name, embellishments and extra details all throughout, and I have some pop-outs. All right. So I want you to think about where you would fly, where you would go, do a little research. You're doing different techniques and collaging and popping out and landscape with atmospheric perspective. So many different things that we're using our knowledge for here, all to kind of honor Black History Month and Faith Ringgold and her life as well. Here's some student examples. You can see all sorts of different places that they want to go. I love how unique every single one is. And then sometimes I hang them up all together like that so it looks like a giant quilt, like a community of quilts. Each class kind of comes together to make one big piece. That's also why I like those Freedom quilts and Faith Ringgold quilts, because it's putting all these different pieces together, different histories together to make one big unified piece. Love it. Let's see, do I have more examples? I don't think so. So I cannot wait to see what you come up with where you would want to fly and go, how you do your landscape, how you do your pop-outs, how you do your scrap collage. Everyone's going to be so unique and inspiring. I just can't wait to see it. So please share when you are finished, your process, your thinking, your working, your artistic vision. You're all champions. I cannot wait to see it. Keep up the good work. Ask questions and go back in these videos as needed. Adios, amigos.